I don't know how to start this video, truthfully, because I have had another full day of preparing for my movie, and it is genuinely a full-time job, more than a full-time job at this point. But it is absolutely worth it, so forgive me if I'm a little more all over the place than usual, because it's late. I was supposed to make dinner for someone this evening, and then she was like, hey, can we reschedule later in the week? And I was like, oh, thank God. Yeah, we wound up staying at the office way too long, but there's no such thing, am I right? Anyway, so I decided that since I am feeling drained of energy, this would make it thematically fitting for Leech Seed, Giga Drain, Celebi. Yeah, that works. But really, this is a pretty crazy Celebi set because of how it fuses the old style of Celebi and the new style. Well, it's still new to me, but then of post-advance, new advance, the development of Celebi that happened around then. How it combines these together into this sort of postmodern Celebi. That's not really accurate, but I think it is the most fully modernized Celebi, and in many ways it is, I don't know if it's optimal because it depends on your team and all that jazz, but I think it is definitely the most powerful pound for pound in comparison to the other sets, simply because it is so incredibly threatening against pretty much everything. It doesn't really have a bad matchup team-wise, where Celebi's defensive sets, as great as Celebi's defensive and offensive sets alike can be, some of the biggest game breakers in the tier, potentially, especially if it's running Baton Pass, they also can struggle more. On a general thing, like SD Pass, to take an extreme example, that can be, the most brutal thing in the world. I had a very, very intense lesson when I first encountered that set in Smogon Tour in early 2011. Oh my god, it passed the agility Metagross. How does anyone beat this? Years later, we still don't know. But yeah, SD Celebi can also run into some serious roadblocks. And even the more generally consistent sets, yes, it depends on team support and such, but generally, when you get this Celebi variant into a groove, then it's not even about getting into a groove, rather if you set it up well, which is easy considering it's just operating on, a team with sand and spikes, i.e. the most powerful advanced playstyle since ever, then it is really, I'm not saying that, it can't go wrong and that you can't get outplayed, or that, if you wield it badly, but generally, it's very easy to reap immense rewards, and that's the kind of Pokemon/set that you really look for, low risk, high reward. So it's a set that's going to be familiar to anyone with a current understanding of Advance. It is Leech Seed, Giga Drain, Psychic, HP, Fire. There's a lot of ways you can EV it. Modest is the most preferred, to my understanding. And not just, my preference, but in general. And to support this, then the sample teams we're going to look at briefly also both have Modest, but they're both by the same player. But generally, that set is so tied to this one player, and we will explore that in more depth. But why is Leech Seed plus 3 attacks so intense as to merit such superlative praise? Well, Leech Seed 3 attacks is not really too intuitive a strategy on any Pokemon, in any metagame, I would think. Of all the Leech Seed Pokemon that I can think of over the generations, then generally you pair them with things like Protect, or Substitute, or Recovery, Spikes if you're Ferrothorn, Knockoff, further utility sorts of stuff. Obviously, you're going to throw some attacks in there to accentuate your Leech Seed, and because sometimes you have to do direct damage, obviously. But generally, Leech Seed is seen as a move on a supporting kind of Pokemon, even if it's more offensively geared. Like, for example, Sub-Seed Skyman, to take the most broken leech seeder of all time. It's still thought of, in terms of utility, because yes, you've got your stabs and sub and seed, but you're setting up the sub. You're not just attacking nonstop. Maybe that's, I guess, if you think about it, this Celebi set in advance is almost like Skyman, but it needs 3 attacks to destroy everything instead of 2. So it can't quite afford sub. But so another, I guess, a more accurate example of offensive leech seed would be sometimes Breloom, but really more like Sub-Seed Jumpluff. Doesn't even run an attacking move a lot of times. Sub, Sleep, Leech, Encore. Sometimes you can slot an attacking move in there, of course, but generally, it's all about the utility, even though it's timid max speed, and it has the same speed stat as the Lottie Twins. So, if you look at the sample teams thread in advance, then first of all, I should like to make clear that you should not complain about these. I'm not saying you do, you personally, the kind viewer/listener, but I'm saying that a lot of people do. And if you witness it, then you should shame them. Because the sample teams, like, sure, they could be updated or whatever, but a lot of the people screaming for updates are people who just want free teams. And as far as they want free, up-to-date, optimized teams for their own benefit. And as far as the purpose of sample teams, which is to acquaint new players with the tier's common archetypes and give you some good ground to stand on as you go through the learning process, these teams are great. So some of these details are inaccurate. Like, for example, my Skarmag Arrow team is from 2016, not 2015. And another one is that this team, submitted by Eden, this one's really mine. Not just because of the combination of Pokemon, but right down to the Spadef Celebi. Yeah, and I think even the EVs are mine. Now, I'm not saying he's taking credit for it. I'm saying whoever is in charge of this thread has some splaining to do. I miss I Love Lucy. Anyway, so the sample team thread, you see a lot of Celebis here. And yes, I'm aware that the plural of Celebi is Celebi, but leave me alone. Celebis makes me sound more, cool. It's cool to make grammatical errors because that makes you seem like a person of the people, down to earth. Anyway. Yeah, you see a lot of Celebi here, but generally you see, defensive Leech Seed or, offensive Baton Pass. And for some reason... Oh, no, we do have a 3-attack Calm Mind. And we'll get to the details of 3-attack... Oh, no, this isn't even 3-attack Calm Mind. It's BP. I forgot about that. I remember this team coming out. Why did I not remember that? Anyway, we're for those viewing the screen, don't worry. I am going to adjust when we look at the teams more in depth. But for now, I just wanted to scroll through the sample teams thread. But yeah, generally... we look at the old modes of Celebi, as in, back in the net battle days, the current gen days, Celebi was a slow, defensive Leech Seed Pokemon. You threw in other things like Parasong and Heal Bell, and it stabbed, Psychic and HP Grass. Giga Drain was non-existent. You would just run HP Grass, because you would never really run HP Fire. The alternative was if you were running, well, in general, defensive Leech Seed Celebi, like even Calm Mind, Leech, Recover, Psychic, a great set. That's still defensive Celebi, right? First and foremost, it is leeching and recovering and psychicking, and if you get the chance for a Calm Mind Sweep, great. If not, okay. And then the aggressive Celebi of the current gen days was Swords Dance Baton Pass. As you see some SDBP teams here, where, that aforementioned Agiligros sweep, ooh, it's nasty stuff. So... that was their aggressive counterpart, and of course you could pass Calm Minds, like Calm Mind, BP, Recover, Psychic, but that didn't really have its own archetype as much. That was just general, like, offense kind of stuff. It was more loose in that sense, whereas defensive Celebi on defensive, bulky, balanced teams, and SD pass Celebi on Magneton offense, physical offense stuff. So, physical Magneton offense. Yes, the Magneton is physical. No, obviously it's not. Anyway, so... then the revolution of sorts comes in the Smogon Tour years, when after Gen 4, when Gen 5 comes around, Smogon Advance gets reintroduced to Smogon Tour, and obviously the metagame at first is a continuation of that current Gen era, but then a new style pops up. Now, neither of these... Does this Celebi have... no, this is a different Celebi. Okay. For some reason, no sample team has Calm Mind 3 attack Celebi, which I understand is a relic, not as common, but it's still part of the metagame. Jeez. But yeah, this Calm Mind spam team by Dexit was not the first, but it was one of the most defining. And the original Calm Mind spam team looked very much like this. Suicune, Dugtrio, Jirachi, Celebi. But whereas Dex's team has Porygon 2 and Raikou in the last slots, Java's team had DD Tar and Swampert. I realized the way I phrased that made it sound like the Swampert had DD too, but no, it was Swampert and DD Tar. So, yeah, Calm Mind spam, as M Dragon said back then, there were no original Calm Mind spams. Now, that time has proven that a little untrue, but he had a Calm Mind spam too, with Suicune, Jirachi, Celebi, and Dugtrio. His last two were Regice and Gengar. That was a great team. But basically, the idea is that with these newfangled Calm Mind spams, then Celebi has taken an offensive route of its own. Previously, offensive Celebi goes, I'm supporting the team with my, more aggressive playstyle. I'm Calm Minding and baton passing. I'm SDing and baton passing. But actually using an offensive spread and going for it myself, not so much. Now, for those listening, don't worry, you're not missing anything. But for those watching, you'll see that this Celebi has BP, Calm Mind, Giga Drain, HP Fire. But you'll also notice the EV's Timid, 252 special attack, 152 speed, which outspeeds neutral base 100s, and rest in HP. And that was the standard offensive Celebi. Just put Psychic over Baton Pass here, so you have Calm Mind, Giga Drain, HP Fire, Psychic, dual stabs, hit Salamence, stuff like that, and Gengar, and Heracross, better than HP Fire by a mile. And that was your standard offensive Celebi. So you now pretty clearly had things divided into defensive Celebi, which was still, very good and a staple on all sorts of balance and defensive teams. And then offensive Celebi. And obviously you had the BP stuff in there, but the BP stuff was always more niche. So now offensive Celebi was its own threat. You could just Calm Mind it up and blasted through teams yourself. Speed, power, it doesn't get ruined by T-Wave or Toxic because of Natural Cure, which is really nice. And obviously, if you want to throw Baton Pass on it, then you can, and really, really boost your teammates. So a lot of people did that. But even though it's a Calm Mind BP Celebi here, it's still got offensively invested Giga Drain and HP Fire, so it does pose a threat. You can't just be like, oh, well, the Celebi doesn't threaten me before it BP, so that lets me send in my T-Tar freely. No, you got to watch out for that invested boosted Giga Drain. So, yes. Now these, you see the distinction we're talking about here between old school Leech Celebi, which was running Psychic and HP Grass exclusively, because why would you run HP Fire? That it just wasn't. I mean, I know why you would, but you generally wouldn't, because Skarmory was physically defensive back in the day, so you would wear it down with Psychics. And Fortress was non-existent because on Net Battle, Substitute blocked Rapid Spin, so Fortress sucked. And I still don't like Fortress today. I think it's Snorlax tier. But it's something you have to take into account. And, of course, the hit on Metagross, and to a lesser extent Jirachi, and other Celebi is very appreciated. Now, what's funny is that I think HP Fire on Leech Seed Celebi, it did start developing on defensive teams, as you'll notice some of these teams, like on this old Marowak team of stars. By the way, for people wondering, oh, this team gets trashed by the special Calm Minders, Jirachi and Celebi. I really like using this team with 4 attack, max HP, max attack Tyranitar over Marowak, and that solves the problem pretty nicely if you play well. So, the more you know. Anyway, so yes, this kind of team uses a sort of mix between classic slow defensive Celebi, outsped by Heracross defensive Celebi, Heracross and offensive Suicune. When Calm Mind spam started getting used, a big appeal was that a lot of answers were things like slow Zapdos and Celebi, and offensive Suicune just bowled them over. So the more newfangled version of Leech Celebi was obviously you want a lot of bulk, but and a little bit of special attack to threaten Dugtrio. But notice the speed EVs. 136 speed bold, which outruns both Adamant Heracross and Modest Suicune. So that is the Celebi both using its bulk and Leech Seed. Using bulk and speed on Leech Seed, whereas previously it was just all bulk all the way. So and there were innovations. It was mostly physically defensive, but then Fear was experimenting with things like Spadef Celebi, which is of course very good. Still is a very good set. But yeah, on this kind of fast Celebi set, then you notice the faster paced playstyle, and this faster paced playstyle also lends itself to what, I don't have a team that wants to sit around waiting against Skarmory forever. I want to hit it hard, and I want to threaten Fortress more, because now in the Smoke and Tor era on Pokemon Online, Rapid Spin is no longer no longer has its effect blocked by Substitute. So Fortress actually gets used, and Rapid Spin, and then you got to threaten it. And as such, you have these two influences come together and give rise to HP Fire on bulky Celebi, bulky fast Celebi. I'm sure you could run HP Fire on a slow Celebi, of course, but generally they tend to come together because the kind of team that runs fast Celebi would also want this higher pressure. The kind of team that is mid-range enough to not fully slow down and counter offensive Suicune also is going to be mid-range because it's more aggressive than such a Blissey sit-on Suicune type of stall team, and thus this faster pace means I want to hit the Skarmory and the Fortress. And the quicker hits against wearing down Metagross, I'm not going to say no to that either. So, with this in mind, now we've got HP Fire as an option on Leech Seed Celebi, and you can throw in Giga Drain there because, as the offensive Calm Mindset showed, hey, Giga Drain sucks in Gen 3 because it's only 8 PP and 60 base power. It wouldn't get buffed until Gen 5, but you know what? It gets the job done. So you could run Giga Drain there. You could run Psychic and HP Fire, which is generally a good combination. I mean, Jirachi uses that on some Calm Mindsets, the Psy-Fire coverage. So it worked on Celebi as well. Leech, Recover, Psychic, HP Fire. I liked that. I had a team with Leech, Psychic, HP Fire, Baton Pass I really liked. So basically, Celebi's a very flexible Pokemon, right? So you can mix and match to your liking. So I just realized a workout I forgot to do on my way home at the outdoor gym. Okay, I guess I'll do it in the morning. Anyway, yeah. So Celebi is now going more aggressive, even outside of Calm Mind. But these Celebis that are going faster and faster are still generally running bulk if they're leech seeding. So now we go to these two sample teams by the user Shitrock Enjoyer, which is he's known as Fudazi, Fruhdazi. If you know Modern Advance, you know him. Very influential player, and for some reason his Smogon Forums name is Shitrock Enjoyer because, I don't know, something about someone getting their shit rocked, and I think it has something to do with Regirock, which he was spamming, whatever. Anyway, Fudazi became known in advance for being one of the best ladder heroes we've seen in a long time. A ladder hero is, for those who don't know, someone who exclusively plays on the ladder, isn't proven in tournaments, but wow, this guy's killing the ladder. And can he make it in tournaments? Well, Fudazi has. But he was really, I forget exactly what he achieved. I'd have to look that up, but because I was not super tuned in. But I was like, oh wow, this kid's killing the ladder. And what he did it through his style, his very particular style of Spike's offense. He loved his Mixments on there. He loved Hydro Salamence, which I'm always a big fan of. This arrows in there, of course, as you see here. This team of his is really his signature. But he had so many permutations, which I admire, because a good player should have lots of permutations of their favorite style, because that means they see all the possibilities. But yeah, this team in particular was what he rode to whatever his impressive rank was. And here we see, no, this is the Starmie version. What I wanted to see was this one. Yes, so both these teams have the same Celebi set, actually. If we go look at this one, then we see now this Celebi, which it's pretty fast. It could be faster, but again, the details of this EV spread are not the most crucial point here. You could make it faster, you could make it, give it less special attack, you could make it bulkier, whatever. This is his preference on this team. When I like this set, I like different spreads on different teams too. I like max special attack personally. But really, it depends. You could run this with almost no bulk. But yeah, it works gorgeously. And this was his team. There's the Hydro Pump Mixments. Beautiful set. And yeah, so basically, fast-paced Celebi on Spike's offenses is not really new. And honestly, I could dedicate a video just to this team. I think maybe I will. It's a beautiful team. But previously, it's basically like some sort of mix of, well, either actually no, sorry, it's not a mix of these two. The defensive Celebi and the offensive Celebi. That's what this Leech 3 attack variant is. It's more it was previously one of those like fast Celebis with lots of bulk and Leech Seed, or Calm Mind 3 attacks. Both fine. But, what if you put Leech Seed over Calm Mind on, Calm Mind Celebi, on the offensive Calm Mind Celebi? Wow, that sounds crazy. How does it work? Well, it's a pretty simple idea. You basically run... Okay, so Calm Mind... It's the same as a lot of boosters, really. That sometimes they're great with a boost, but sometimes the game is going so fast that you don't have that time to boost. You need to just be able to attack. And in such matchups, then you don't really, want to be clicking Calm Mind. And you're basically working with 3 attacks, right? So what do you do instead? Calm Mind Celebi also has the issue of being, stonewalled by Blissey pretty hard. So what do? Leech Seed is one of the most spammable moves in the game. When Advance came back to Smog and Tor, then everyone was spamming Celebi. I remember Blaragen said, I'm not a real Advanced player, but I've played it a lot in Smog and Tor, and it feels like if your team doesn't have Celebi, it's not a good team. Crazy to think Celebi used to be ranked as a top 3 Pokemon in Advance, alongside T-Tar and Suicune. But yeah, and I remember that period very well, and it felt like the only way to really safely switch into other Celebi Leech Seed was to have your own Celebi. So HP Fire obviously helps with that kind of thing, but I hope I haven't already said that in this video, but, tired. I've been talking all day. But yeah, I don't think I did. Whatever. Point being that Leech Seed is a very spammable, immediate move. Calm Mind, it's like, oh, well, Ment switched in, I gotta switch out, I didn't do any damage. And, sometimes you want to just attack and attack, but, what are you going to attack into? Do you want to Psychic the Skarmory? Do you want HP Fire the Skarmory? Do you want to Psychic the Salamence? Do you want to Giga Drain the T-Tar? And if you just have 3 attacks at your disposal, like on the Calm Mind set, then, you're not really going to break through T-Tar or Salamence without sustaining heavy damage, if not a KO yourself, and you don't want to trade Celebi for it. And otherwise, you're not really going to threaten them, definitely not reliably, with how much of a prediction factor it can be. Leech Seed hits pretty much everything, except for other Celebi. And obviously, you've got Sand and Spikes and a strong HP Fire, so even if they do have a very bulky Celebi, it's still not switching in comfortably. It'll be forced to recover, and then you get a free switch to your physical, your HP Bug, T-Tar, or Arrow, or your Salamence, or your Skarmory for more Spikes. Absolutely, hell yeah. So... Leech Seed, you get that turn against Swampert or Milotic or Suicune or whatever, and with you Leech Seed, and whatever comes in, it's taking damage and you're healing up. I mean, why Leech Seed's great, right? But you combine this with this sort of offensive presence, and then with a defensive Celebi, then you can kind of sit on it, right? Like you got a defensive Jirachi. It's like, oh well, uninvested HP Fire is the worst thing I'm going to face, and otherwise, yeah, it'll be annoying, but I can Wish Up, and Psychic and HP Grass aren't hurting me, so I can kind of sit on it, I can pass some wishes, I'll be okay. Now, defensive Jirachi switching into Leech Seed and then getting peppered by Max's special attack HP Fires, no matter how bulky your Jirachi is, it is going to be under severe pressure. And it's really a pain because, as the Celebi is bludgeoning you, it's gaining health. So combining the innate offensive potential of offensive Calm Mind Celebi with the healing of Leech Seed and, the offensive potential of Leech Seed itself, it's really a beautiful match made in heaven. I don't know if Fudazi, invented this set. I think stuff like that had been experimented with, maybe, but he definitely popularized it, if not straight up invented it. So major credits to him for that. I'll have to look back into that for... the detail for the video I want to make on his team. But yeah, so Leech Seed pressures everything, and then by being max special attack invested with 3 attacks, you have all that power and coverage, then you make your own, then you enhance the already enormous threat of the Leech Seed. So it's really massive stuff. And yeah, they just complement each other beautifully. And what else is really nice is obviously you want Sand and Spikes working with this, right? Obviously they're Spike immune Pokemon, and some of them don't mind switching into Celebi, but they don't really love switching into Celebi either. Salamence and Zapdos are the better ones, and even Skarmory. But with the max special attack and coverage, you are peppering them. Nothing. It boils down to this: a lot of things switch into offensive Calm Mind Celebi, even with Sand and Spikes. Nothing really switches into Leech Seed offensive Celebi with Sand and Spikes. It's obviously got to be careful of Dugtrio, but what Celebi doesn't. So that's the real beauty of it, that you have this great offensive defensive Pokemon by virtue of all that Celebi naturally does defensively, and now you pose a threat to, again, I can't emphasize this enough, literally everything. And a big part of this is that Celebi synergizes so well with the with Spikes and the Spikers, but Spikes, because notice the levitating Pokemon in the tier. Not a lot of them want to switch into it. And Gengar, get out of here. Celebi and Zapdos. Salamence and Zapdos. Celebi switches into a lot of Zapdos, number one, and Salamence doesn't like taking Leech Seed in Sand. Fears the big invested Psychic. Arrow can switch in kinda, but it's potentially quite uncomfortable. So yeah. Skarmory, HP Fire, Flygon is under pressure, so Gyarados, not exactly, and a lot of them don't necessarily threaten Celebi back in return and are threatened, and so everything else that's grounded, that's taking, at least Spikes, if not Sand on top of it, major pressure. And a big part of this is that Celebi threatens the Rapid Spinners of the tier, Fortress, Starmie, Claydol. Because if you could just switch into Leech Seed and use it as an opportunity to remove Spikes, spin blocking, whatever, it's still an opportunity. Celebi using Leech Seed, as potentially nice as it can be with Spikes, is an invitation to the Rapid Spinner if you cannot threaten it. But with Giga Drain and HP Fire, you threaten you'll even threaten the occasional Donphan. So, I'm not saying that Claydol crumples to Giga Drain, not by a long shot, but, you Leech Seed on the switch, you do a little damage, and then you pepper it with strong Giga Drain, and in the long run, you will be okay. Or, if you have Gengar, obviously, then you can make a good pivot to it there. Gengar loves being paired with the Celebi. The nice thing about this Celebi is that it causes so many switches. You always hear about, Leech Seed causes switches. This Celebi causes so many switches, and obviously that racks up more Spikes, and nothing's comfortable switching into the Celebi in general. You have to do this, awkward little dance around its power and its coverage. And of course, the Leech Seed of it all, if it starts catching you as you switch around it with Leech Seeds, you are in such pain. The reason it's why it's causing more switches than your average Leech Seed Celebi is, again, because of the offensive onslaught, which is paired with the Leech Seed. Leech Seed is already kind of a pain to deal with, even if you're bulky and can kind of sit on it. But when you have these three special attacks, invested, great coverage, ready to go, and then you're pairing them with Leech Seed like this, it's really just extraordinary. Again, think of Skyman. Its Seed Flare and its Air Slashes are already so nasty, and now you have to contend with them while getting Leech Seeded? Oh my god, horrifying. So, Celebi is really, really extraordinary in this. And it's just such a great Pokemon. Here's how great it is. The first replay we looked at, I don't remember what this was for, or when was this? This was May. Oh, this was recent, May 9th. So I don't know. It was probably Advanced PL or something. But what's funny is that here in this opening replay, we saw not a mirror match, but we saw two Leech Seed, HP Fire, Giga Drain, Psychic Celebi, Leech 3 attack Celebi, facing each other. And this, partially goes to show how much of a standard it has become. And what's funny is that, Fudazi is running it, and Caluminum is running, the set that he made popular against him. But what's so great about it is that Fudazi has become synonymous with this team, or this style that he topped the ladder with and just spams and everything, right? And what's particularly amazing is that you think of him, and the first thing you think of is Spikes plus Leech 3 attack Celebi, and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to counter this hard. And then you're like, how do I do that? It's such a ridiculously good Pokemon that, this past SPL, he was on my team. And he brought, partway through the season, we were telling him, like, dude, you got to bring your comfort stuff because you play well with it, and it doesn't matter if the opponent knows that's what you use, because if you play well, and it's such good stuff against everything that it almost doesn't matter. I'm not saying spam it every game for the rest of your life, but if you need to fall back on some comfort, this is as reliable a comfort style as you are to find. This is the kind of style that even the most inventive players fall back on when it's time for a win. So, and a big part of that is the fact that Celebi is so... this Celebi is so threatening. Like, look, no matter how precisely you tool your advanced team, Sand and Spikes and Skarmory are going to go up. And then once they go up, Celebi is going to cause you some serious, serious pain. I don't know why he didn't use Leech Seed here, but not really the point. And again, that first replay we saw against Sadlicious, that was the first week he brought it. And this next week, he brought it again into McMegan. Maybe the best advanced player ever, maybe the best player ever. I just used it, and now I'm going to use it again. That's how much of a comfort pick it was for him, but it's beyond the comfort pick. I was on his team. I wouldn't suggest, like, use this, if it's bad. Like, you're comfortable with it, but, if it's the kind of thing that's prone to bad matchups, then, maybe let's rein it in a little bit, especially when you're so known for it. But, part of the reason why I encouraged it was... not to take credit away from Fudazi, obviously. I was just there to, help him be the best version of himself. But, part of the reason why I was enthusiastic about the idea was, this thing beats everything. I mean, when I say, I use the term beats loosely, obviously. But again, nothing switches into Leech 3 attack Celebi with and Spikes comfortably. And the switches it forces and the damage it leaves strewn across the opponent's team means it's such easy pickings for your teammates. It's Arrow or your favorite D-Deer or Agility Metagross, which I think you used a lot of. Is that whatever cleaner? Gengar, obviously. Calm Mind Jirachi. Look, it's whatever you want, really. And yeah, it's just beautiful, beautiful stuff, and I can't really praise it highly enough. So that is basically everything, I think. And the funny thing is that so he brought the Leech Celebi, won these 2 games in a row, then he brought it the 3rd game in a row, and he didn't win that one, but it wasn't because, my Celebi got counter-teamed. It was just because he played a very good opponent in Bad Dummy. I don't remember exactly what happened, but... yeah. We're gonna glance at that in a second, but yeah, funnily enough, in these last 2 games, the Celebi didn't even use Leech Seed. It was just, it was just Psychic, HP Fire in this game. In the previous game, it was the 3 attacking moves. But you see how, in this situation where I just want to attack with my Celebi, well, I don't want to, actually, Calm Mind is actually very threatening to Sadlicious' team. So maybe this is not the best game to make my case for this. Actually, it's really... Well, that's what the Drill Peck Zapdos is for. But also my point being, like, yeah, Calm Mind is threatening here, but Leech Seed... Look how threatening Leech Seed is here as well. You have the 2 spinners in Starmie and Fortress, and still... See, look, this is exactly what I mean. Fudazi runs... I don't pretend to speak for Sadlicious' preparation methods by any stretch of the imagination, by the way. But this is what I mean. 2 spinners into this guy who runs nothing but, theoretically, runs nothing but Skarm and Celebi, and no Gengar even. A lot of the time, his Spike's offenses don't even have the spin block of Gengar. And so you run 2 spinners into this, and the Celebi still wins the game. Isn't that extraordinary? Obviously, Fudazi's play is to be credited, for sure, but he's got such... it's largely off the strength of how good Celebi is. And look how spammable Leech Seed is into Sadlicious' team. Zap, Fori, Pert, me, Gar, Jolteon. Leech Seed goes crazy. And what's really crazy about this, with the dual electric and everything, that's why the Zapdos has Drill Peck to help clear the way for Celebi. For Jolteon, sorry. against Celebi. But the crazy thing is, like, this is exactly what I mean by, like, nothing switches into Leech Seed comfortably, and since nothing on this team really threatens Celebi so comfortably, then the Celebi is able to stay in and slug it out and pressure you with its attacks on top of the Leech Seed, and then you're switching around more, just trying to dance around the Leech Seed. It's really, really gruesome stuff in the most gorgeous way possible. Yeah, I don't remember this game with the Suicune. But there is the Celebi. Oh, no, this wasn't Leech Seed 3 attack Celebi. This was a Calm Mind BP kind of thing. Okay, never mind. But yeah, he brought it 2 games in a row, and it was great and all that. That is it from me on this subject. Thank you for watching / listening. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.